Good morning. Welcome to the Science of Mind class here at CSLDallas. I'm Dr. Petra Weldis, and we are on page 141. If you have your book, and I love that somebody here in the room said they have their book dog-eared at home and bookmarked, and so I hope you have yours bookmarked too, and you know where we are. But we're on page 141. We're going to finish up that first full paragraph, which is where we stopped last week. And there's some really lovely things to be thinking about here. We stopped with the idea that that the infinite law of life cannot make the gift to us. It must work through us, right in the middle of the paragraph. Realizing then that while the power is limitless, right? The power of the infinite is limitless, just like the power of gravity is limitless. There's limitless, a weird, like a thing that will really blow your mind is like there's a limitless number of numbers, and then there's a limitless number of negative numbers. Like that just makes my brain hurt to even try to think about it. Right? There's a limitless, is limitless. It must become operative through our own thought, or we might say through our own consciousness. It must become operative through our own consciousness. We shall see that what we need is not some greater power, but a greater consciousness, a deeper realization of life, a more sublime concept of being, a more intimate concept of an already indwelling God. Notice that what we need is not a greater consciousness about the house we want to manifest. Not a greater consciousness about the form. What we need is a greater consciousness about the nature of reality, who we are, the creative process, and how this all works. Who we are in the whole, right? Made in the image and likeness of the infinite. Not trying to become that, already made in the image and likeness. It becomes operative through our own thought, and truthfully, I would say it is operative through our own thought, our own consciousness. So if we want a different experience of reality, it's not out there. It is our concepts, our ability to understand what is going on, and that we, in fact, are co-creating. That as our lives are unfolding, it's unfolding in many ways according to our ability to sense that we are actually able to say, I want more than this. We as humanity deserve to be better for each other. We can, in fact, clean up the environment. Right? That becomes a larger consciousness, and we can say those things because we know that when we really understand what's going on, we join in that limitlessness. We expand and embrace more of the limitlessness as opposed to the limitations of our ordinary consciousness, our human consciousness, the ways in which we have come to understand life to be. This is what it means, working through us, right? It is limited by our ability to say, there is a power for good in the universe and I can use it. There is a power for good in the universe and it uses me. There is a power for good in the universe and that power, we're it. And when I speak my word, that is the word of creation. Do you see, we're growing in our understanding, and the I at that point is not the egoic I, it is the great I am. It is the I that I am, not the egoic I that would like my life to always work beautifully and for everything to always be fine and never have any problems. Who wants to manage and control or decide that I have to fit in or I have to rebel or all those kinds of things, right? Not the egoic I, but the I that I truly am. And so this idea that it works through us is is not to be interpreted that it works through us by guiding us to do things. We may be guided to do things if we're listening to the impress, but the idea that it works through us has everything to do with our ability to work with understanding how it works and recognizing that the only limitation is the limitation of our own consciousness. And every time we say, oh man, that's hard, or wow, I don't really see how that's going to work out, these are all the ways in which we are delimiting a limitless reality. So we really want to impress upon it. It cannot work for us. It must work through us. Now, the higher our consciousness is, the more that we really embrace the truth that life is always for life, that the law is always operating, that the creative process is always engaging in evolving consciousness. Do you see, the more that we embrace that larger consciousness, the more we can then say, and Spirit is working through me. The law is working for me, without necessarily specificity. Because we have developed that larger consciousness. What I notice is that too many people trade its God's will for its Spirit's will without having developed this larger consciousness. It must become operative through our own thought. We shall see that what we need is not some greater power, but a greater consciousness. And what is that greater consciousness? A deeper realization of life, a more sublime concept of being, right? That being is the absolute reality. A being is the very being of life itself. It is the being of all life, which means it is our being as well, our beingness. A more intimate concept of an already indwelling God, which means that being is here as well as there. It's both the transcendent mystery, which we will never wrap our minds around, and it is also the deepest experience we have of ourselves and life, which we can actually experience even if we can't articulate it. Even if our rational brains get a little, what? Poof, right? We can actually experience it. This is what it means by a greater consciousness. And the more we have those things, the more we can, in fact, relax and allow the process to unfold. The more we can trust that life is for life. And maybe we don't have to be so specific, but at that point, we get to be specific if we want, just for the fun of it. Like we can decide to grow red roses or white roses, right? If you're the Queen of Hearts, you want red roses, and you get to decide that. But you can also just allow the roses to grow whatever color they are. And that's okay too, because we know how it works. When we don't know how it works, and then we say, well, I'm just going to let Spirit do it for me, all that's being unfolded is the size of the consciousness that we actually currently have. And this is sometimes why it's a little challenging to have conversations with different people at different levels of embodiment or engagement or acceptance of these truths. And sometimes I notice that people get into, well, you should just let Spirit do it. Well, no, you have to be specific, as if there's a right or wrong answer. There's not. There's not a right or wrong answer. Both of them are equally valid and equally true, equally available to us, and we have to recognize where we are coming from, where our consciousness resides, and not impose it on others. So I love this last statement, and a more intimate concept of an already indwelling God who is personal to us by virtue of being personified through us. And this, we should stop here and say this is potentially one of the most difficult places of initiation in the Science of Mind New Thought path. if we were raised in a very traditional spirituality, if we have come to feel loved by something, by Jesus, by God, by a guru, by something, right, that loves us and therefore takes care of us, we are still thinking about this infinite as a parental, caring figure. And when we begin to move into embracing the law and the principles of how this works, and we take responsibility for the fact that it's actually our consciousness that is limiting or delimiting or allowing this good to come into our lives, we can't rely on Spirit to do it for us. Spirit to love us so much to say, there, no, really, you don't want to do that. Let me give you what you really need. Because it's working through us. And when we can really embrace that and let go of the idea of a parental or a God outside of us that is taking care of us, right? And really own that responsibility and then really surrender to how it does, in fact, work through us. My experience is the end result of that is a deeper experience of belonging and love, because the very thing we are looking for to love us is already here. So rather than seeking to be loved, we realize that we are love. And love is so fully present in both its transcendent and immanent reality that belonging is no longer questioned. For me, man, all my addictions and all my things, all that nonsense that my teen years and young adult years, I was totally invested in. Most of it was because I had a giant black hole living inside me, and I was terrified of it. And I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that if I got too close to that black hole, I would fall in. And I would disappear. And it would be bad. You would never hear from me again. This all-consuming emptiness and black, this vortex sucking the life out of me. And, for whatever reason, psychologically, we can, we all have those traumas. And it is, and so, of course, what we try to do, we all have maybe a little bit of it. Some people call it the God-sized hole. And, of course, we try to fill it. So we fill it with things and people and success and addictions, and we're constantly trying to fill that hole. The problem is it's a God-sized hole, basically, right? It means it's a nothing, no thing, no human experience, no thing is going to fill it. And so by really being willing to work through this process and to own that it can only do for us what it can do through us, to really embrace the creative process, to take responsibility for it, and surrender our, false humility, really, our false ideas of how small and stupid and incapable we are, to surrender all that shit, to get rid of it, right, and to allow this light to be us, to shine through us, right? Ultimately, the place we come to is, oh my God, it's always already been here. That which I was longing for has always already been here. And I remember in my late 20s doing a meditation and having a moment, oh my God, that black hole, it's gone. And it was then that I began to experience my belonging in the universe, in my own life, to myself, and to that infinite life, right? This is what it means. Who is personal to us by virtue of being personified through us. Not as our personalness. I would say, if I were rewriting this, which I do on a regular basis, I would say who is personal to us by virtue of being individualized through us, or even individualized as us. Right? And when I stop feeling the black hole and I start feeling my belonging, it's so much easier to see that that's the truth in others. So much easier to see that that's the truth in others. And so it's the work with the law, which sometimes feels very cold and very non-spiritual and not heart-centered and not this and not that, right? It is the very work that opens the door to this deep, rich experience of presence. But we have to be willing to do the work, right? And the work is beautifully captured in Meister Eckhart's saying. Meister Eckhart was a Christian mystic from, I don't know, somewhere back in the Middle Ages. He was burned at the stake as a heretic. And his prayer was, I pray to God to rid me of God, that I might find God. Pray to God to rid me of the concept of God, the box of God, the old idea of God, the whatever that is. I pray to God to rid me of God, that I may find God. Right? That's what we're talking about here. To let go of the old concepts, which is scary. And it can really move us into a place of feeling cold and disconnected. But that's the work. That's the initiation. That's the spiritual initiation that we walk through. When we recognize this greater consciousness, this is the greater consciousness. It's being talked about right here in this paragraph. A deeper realization of life. A deeper realization of what life is, how it works, where it comes from. A deeper realization of life. A more sublime concept of being. What it is, that it's everywhere, that it's the same being that is our being, that is all being, and that this being is absolute. It's absolute love and presence and joy and beauty. There are no opposites in being, only in becoming. A more intimate concept of an already indwelling God. Not a God to whom we have to bridge the gap. Do you see? We're so busy thinking I have to become more spiritual. I have to find my unity with God. I have to learn about my relationship with God. No. A more intimate concept, or maybe experience, of the indwelling God, the indwelling presence, which is simply the transcendent mystery being individualized, who is personal to us by virtue of being personified through us. Man, if I could just open your heart and give you that, my greatest wish, to experience that love, that each person would experience that love. We would no longer ever feel disconnected. And we would have no need to make anybody else the enemy or the other. So, we're going to stop there. I surely thought we were going to get on to the next section, but apparently not. So we're going to talk about that. One, what's scary about that? What's scary about letting go of an old idea about God? When have you had the experience of really experiencing that larger consciousness? And what does your belonging feel like? Perhaps we can inspire others to take the journey, because it is a journey. It's a journey of initiation into a greater experience, a greater consciousness. All right, we're going to say good morning to Ryan and Richard and everybody out there. So let's see what's going on.
Well, good morning to you, Dr. Petra, and good morning to everybody here in the room. Yes, I see little teeny hellos. Hi, how you doing? And a big shout out to all the folks who are joining us via Zoom. And hola, mi amigos from the south of the border who are joining us down south. And I forgot the word that we use for the Philippines, but I know you guys
Om Swastiastu. Well, I don't know. They have to correct me because that's what we use in Bali. Om Swastiastu.
There we go. And,
and believe me, I practiced it.
Welcome to everybody else all across the globe that's joining us via Facebook Live. We'd love to see you in community with us as well. So make sure you check in and say hello. And for everybody here in the room, this is an engaging part of our conversation. So if you'd like to raise your hand so you can ask a question or possibly have a comment on what we're talking about today, that'd be great. And for the people who are joining us on Zoom, you can hit the raise your hand icon located down below under the more or the reactions tab. And or you can put your question inside of the chat as well, and I can bring that into the room. And the same goes true for those who are joining us on Facebook. Just go ahead and put your question or comment in the chat. And I always like to keep those anonymous so we can continue to have a safe container for spiritual growth. I don't know why I went with that, but anyway. So let's poll the audience here in the room. Darlene, you actually have the microphone, so give it to yourself.
This is so overwhelming and profound for me. Especially after sitting in that meditation yesterday. Wow. That I feel a sadness almost that realizing this is the way it always has been. And yet we call it new thought. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that the new thought was what I was conditioned to believe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, and so when I talk to people, oh, that's that new age, new thought. And they, you know, and it's like, don't come to me with that. But this is the way it really is.
Right. Which is why I love what Michael Beckwith says. He says ancient wisdom, new thought, right? Because it is drawing from the deepest wisdom and the highest experience of humanity through the ages. And we think new thought means that this is a new idea, when in fact and this is where there's, it's always hard when you have to explain what what the name of something is. But it's called new thought because we understand that when we have a new thought, our life changes. But people hear it as, oh, that's that new thought thing. It's something new, and it's really not. Yes, and that's why if I'm going to make a plug for my teachings of the Bible and the New Testament, we're going to be exploring the teachings of Jesus, and if we explore them without all of the trappings and trimmings on it, we will discover that this is what he was teaching, which is actually out of the ancient mystery schools and the deepest mysticism of the traditions. Every tradition has a mystical side, and they all say the same thing. And it is this, and it gets covered up in the trappings of what we would call exo-practice, the outer form of a religion. And so, it can be very sad. And we are continuing to uncover it. Thanks, Darlene. All right.
This is Ross.
Hi, Ross.
A consciousness in alignment with life as a guiding principle.
Yes.
It's like I've realigned my entire life around that, and what a difference it makes. And I have conversations with people where they want to tell me a problem. Mm-hmm. I say, problems don't exist. You're just not getting what you want yet. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that has surprised me is how many people buy it instantly.
Yes.
It's like this is the first time any of that they've ever heard it, and it makes sense to them.
Yes.
And then it's how.
Yes. Yes.
Now there's room for productive conversation. Not advice.
Yes.
I never give that one. But assisting them in thinking their way through, them figuring out how to get what they want.
I love that. And it is true. There is a listening for it with a lot of people. They just have never heard it before. Or they've heard it. They've heard it in the messages, the teachings of Jesus, the teachings in the Buddha. They've heard the messages, but stripped. There's an opportunity for, stripped of the ancient, of the traditions and the trappings, there's an opportunity to hear it. And of course, science of mind has been called, like Buddhism, a spiritual psychology. And so there's a lot of psychology over the last 100 years, right, that really has informed and confirmed that these things that the mystics have said is actually true. I mean, scientifically, psychologically, many of these things have been confirmed and are simply more ubiquitously talked about. So I really encourage people. I love that you talk to people. I really encourage you, to share, and you don't have to say, "Oh, this is my religion, and you should follow it," but to share your thoughts and feelings about how life works for you, and you might really be opening a door for someone, because there's that instant resonance in some people who really want to hear it. And others, as Darlene said, it's frightening, or it's new, or it's, right? And if what they're doing works for them, for goodness sakes, bless them, love them, right? That's, I watched my mother for 40 years just really become deeper and deeper and deeper into her faith and her Christian walk, and it really supported her through a really difficult marriage and the pain of her unbelievable arthritis, and it served her. And I'm never going to say your path to the divine is wrong, but I will say, please don't make mine wrong, right? And you don't get to do that. I'm not going to make yours wrong, but you don't get to make mine wrong either.
Once upon a time, I had this awakening. Because I was into solving people's problems.
Yes.
I look back at it now with something wince and kind of embarrassment, but in any event.
That's right, we all grow, right, Ross? We all grow.
And I had this moment of awakening when I was working with someone, and they came up with a solution I could never dream of that worked for them in their unique life. I got the understanding of, I can never understand what anyone else experiences.
No.
I can barely understand what I'm experiencing.
Right. Yes, and I love that. And I know that when sometimes people want me to give them advice, I say, look, I don't even know what to do in my own life. I have no idea what you should do in yours. What I can do is I can help you think about it. That's what I can do. I can help you think about it, and then whatever the answer is in the moment, it might not be the answer, but whatever answer it is in the moment, great, let me support you in going for it. Beautiful.
Whatever
Thanks.
pressure I felt went away.
I love that.
I no longer carried anybody.
Right, because life is actually lifing. Life is lifing. We don't have to make it life. It just is lifing, right? We're growing, we're learning, stuff is happening, we get to deal with it. For me, I'm so grateful that I have years of environmentalism. I was in a college for environmental studies, and we learned, and my favorite piece of that was understanding ecosystems, right? And the wholeness of an ecosystem, and that all of the churning change inside an ecosystem is what keeps it alive. And actually, we, in our cabin in New Hampshire, we collectively own 220 acres, all of us who have cabins out there, and we're deliberately now cutting down trees, opening space, because people have been so unwilling to do that the forest is what's called a climax forest. It's reached its full maturation, which also means there's no food for the animals. There's very few birds. And so the churn of the change, you need a small forest fire, not a conflagration like in LA or anywhere else, not that kind of a forest fire. You need mudslides. You need small changes, this internal changing. You need beavers to create dams that kill off trees. And all of a sudden, every time there's a change in an ecosystem, whole new life grows. And now there's berries for the birds, and the deer can eat the grass, and there's rabbits, which means there's fox, which means everything is alive and is moving again. And so we're having to now create that in this acreage so that the forest stays alive, because eventually the trees will all die. And if they all die at once, the whole thing collapses. Right? And so all of that, and we don't know all of the pieces, what has to move and change. And let me speak for myself. When I first got into spiritual work, I wanted to use my spirituality to keep everything the same. It's perfect the way it is. I've treated for it. I've got the perfect this, the perfect that. Nothing can ever change. And of course, when it does, I'm appalled, I'm crushed, I didn't do it right, something's wrong, yada, yada, yada. And then we look for advice, and nobody can help us. That constant milieu is a part of the whole, and that's part of the fun and the joy of it all. So, good. Thanks, Ross. I saw your hand, Ryan.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring in Anita. Anita, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and join us?
Good morning, Anita.
Good morning, Dr. Peter. So, in the reading, Ernest Holmes nailed it, right? Where you read about an indwelling presence. And you asked the question about, what's scary about that? And so, I too came up through Christian roots, and it's really about awakening to the fact that there is that indwelling presence. And once you awaken to that, you're no longer seeking after something out there, because it's awakened within you.
Right.
And now you can embrace that. And once you embrace that overpowering love that you talked about flows over you, and beyond any shadow of a doubt at that very moment that there is no way that you can ever be separated from it.
Yes. And that is the greater consciousness, right? It's so beautiful. And it's so true. That acceptance, that's true. And notice that it's the indwelling presence, not the human ego. Now, there's nothing wrong with the human ego. Nothing. I do not like when people are making the human ego wrong, and it's something you have to banish. Actually, you can't. It's silly, because it would be like saying you're going to banish your body, right? Your body is required to engage in the space-time continuum. If you don't have a body, you're not here. Well, the egoic structure, what the Greeks called the psyche, the mental, emotional, conscious, subconscious, that whole structure is the way in which we mentally and emotionally engage with the space-time continuum. There's not one thing wrong with it. What's wrong, the only thing that's wrong, is if we think that's who we are, and if the ego gets to be in the driver's seat all the time. Right? And it is this indwelling presence that you're talking about, Anita. That is when we can lean, and then that's the thing I want to really say. When you speak about it, the way you speak about it, Anita, what I can sense is how much we can then lean into that indwelling presence. Instead of hoping that we're good enough or have done it right enough for something outside of ourselves, we're actually leaning into that indwelling presence, the I am that I am, as the one great I am, which is also the I am, and we're leaning into that, and we're so loved that it wants nothing more than for the physical and egoic structure to be well, to be fulfilled, to be joy-filled, and to express the unique way in which the indwelling presence is being expressed through this individualized reality. And that indwelling presence then becomes the thing we lean into, and we allow it to move as us, through us. And then that belonging and love is so incredibly present. And so that's that deeper sense of who we really are, which is that individualized expression of the one. Thank you so much for sharing that. I just love the way that you described that. Thanks. All right, Ryan, I see that we have something else going on out there.
Yeah, we do have something else going on out here, and it's my magical friend Armando. Armando, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and join us?
Good morning, Armando.
Good morning, Dr. Petra. This is great for me. I think that when I first was introduced to Science of Mind, I was really tagged to my past experiences, but as I started to learn more, I was able to let it go. But I knew that I didn't have to abandon everything that was in my past. I can hang on to some of the things, some of the ritual things that are really meaningful and makes part of me, and I could let go of the rest. What I've learned also is that praying outward doesn't work as much as if I pray within myself, that I have to be part of that
Yes.
prayer. I have to stand up. I have to show up every day. I have to keep up with my disciplines, my spiritual disciplines every single day. Because I'm able to do that, what I've learned is that the light within has no barriers. It has allowed me to be able to take spirit that is within me, that is so alive, and I get to work with different types of populations, and I get to heal through that because I am so open and so free to be able to learn from them and embrace that and say, okay, but I get to heal through all of that.
Yes.
And because of that freedom that I have and knowing that I show up, it allows me more opportunities to be me and to be able to express how I lean into my greatness, how I'm so committed to attitude of gratitude, and the mind within, the power that I have within me to be able to make and be a change maker in the world. And it's just so powerful for me that it allows me so much. In fact, this past Saturday, I had an opportunity to speak to during a board retreat for a nonprofit. I've not done this before, and I went in and I shared my spiritual practices about gratitude, about leaning into your greatness, all of my life experiences that I've learned through CSLDallas, and I applied it. And I did not know what I was going into, but all I know is what I've learned and what has worked.
Yes.
And that's what happened. And as a result, what I did not know, that there was someone from LA that is doing a documentary series, and approached me and said, I'm working on I just received a grant and I'm doing a documentary on LGBT faith-based leaders, and I would love to interview you and know more about your spirituality and your faith.
I love that.
Just by saying yes, and it's spirit, and I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to have a license. I don't have to do any of that. Just be me.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you, Armando. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love that so much. And one of the things that I think you always express so beautifully is the trust that comes when we can lean into the indwelling presence, right? And the paradox that we have to embrace, that we are perfectly imperfect, that we are both perfect and imperfect. We are both the universal expressing as us, and we are individualized. And so it's not about negating our experiences. It's about recognizing those that no longer need to have a negative impact on us, those that we bring forward. All of it makes us the individualized expression of the universal that we are, right? And we were talking before that started, I've become utterly enamored in this last year and a half with these new words that I found in the Science of Mind, which I'm sure somebody wrote in one night when I wasn't looking. And that's the words dual unity. Dual unity, which is like this brilliant, to me, like this is one way we can embrace the paradox that we are both universal and individualized. And we don't have to be perfect. It's that development of consciousness that says, I understand how this works. I can experience and embrace with my spiritual practices the indwelling presence. I've learned how the law works, and I can stand in my I amness, recognizing that my egoic structure and my body isn't perfect. And is actually, ooh man, I'm going to probably like freak some science of mind people out. It's actually finite, right? Our bodies and our egoic structure is actually finite. Why? Because it belongs to the space-time continuum, where everything is finite. Everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But the I am that I am is not. And these things aren't separate. Okay, right? You got to let your mind be blown. You got to, like, these are the kinds of things you can't try to figure out. You have to look at them through the corner of your eye. You have to try to feel into it, sense it with your body. Think about any place that you've ever experienced, seen or sensed this in physicality and nature, right? This dual unity, which is, I loved what you shared, Armando. Thank you so much, because that's the richness of it. We are not trying to be perfect. We are not trying to always be peaceful and never, ever have anything upset us. We're not trying to not have our feelings. We're not trying to not have our rich, full experience of our human lives, right? Which is why I now call us spirit humans. The dual unity. All right. Anything else you want to talk about, Ryan, before we close?
Actually, I wanted to just say that on this same topic, too, if you are learning more about how your spirit humanity-ness... this is... Yeah, creating these...
That's all right. We can make up words. It's okay.
Yeah. You'll have to put in the chat what you feel like that word should be. We are going to be having a class. It's going to be led by Avis, and it's going to be called Infinite You as the Universe, which is going to be coming up here this month as well, too.
This week? Starts this week,
Tuesday,
Tuesday, the 4th, February 4th.
You're absolutely right. It does start February 4th, and it is online. And if you want to learn more about this thing called Science of Mind and how this power resides within you.
Yes, it's all about that, right? It's really all about that.
Yeah, and as Dr. Petra had mentioned before, on February 20th, we're going to be doing the Bible and New Thought course, which is going to be starting then.
The New Testament portion.
I hear a couple little soft woos in the audience. Come on, you could do better than that. Woo! I think we got Ric Flair in the back there. Anyway, yeah, so it's going to be a great course. If you're... You know, I grew up in a very traditional household, and so it was hard for me to digest the meaning behind the Bible. And so I've listened in on her course before, and it's excellent because you're not challenging your old beliefs, okay? You're uncovering something new and something special, the meaning behind what they talked about, and it's a really great course for anyone who's interested. And... lastly, but surely, starting here at the beginning of March, we also have a Building Your Healing Consciousness.
Yes.
And that's going to be Building Your Healing Consciousness.
Yes.
And that's going to be led by Sherry Wood.
And we should say that if you're looking to build a greater consciousness, that's what this course is about. It's the healing consciousness is that greater consciousness. And so this thing called You is about your indwelling spirit. It is such a warm and beautiful book you'll be working with. Of course, the Bible and New Testament, we're talking about the teachings themselves. And then building a healing consciousness is about building that greater consciousness. Not about manifesting specificity in your life, but learning how to build that greater consciousness and actually doing it. And there's no better teacher for that than Sherry Wood. There's no better teacher for the Bible than me. And there's no better teacher on this thing called You than Avis. Okay, you want to talk about a heart-centered person. So yeah, these are 3 really amazing classes. You should take them all. That's all I have to say.
And yes. And I've been getting hit up in the chat. Yes, I know that Dr. Petra and David Zellman are
Yes.
here in the house today.
Yes.
Hey, we got Rick Flair in the back yet? No? All right. Here we go. Woo! Yeah, there we are. They are doing a workshop later today, so it is in person only.
Yes.
And that's why I was just saving this for last, because you have to be here at CSL Dallas to do so. It will be starting at 1 p.m. So registration is still open and available if you'd like for any of our courses
Yes.
and workshops. You can head over to csldallas.org, hit the events tab, and go to the courses and workshops category.
Yes, and we might just say it's on relationships, and it's this Sunday and next. But if you sign up, we promise we're going to get you out next Sunday in time for the Super Bowl. Do not worry.
Yes, and that will also help to solve some relationship issues as well, too. So, anything else before we close out?
No, and you're going to also, there's lots of things going on, so please do join us at the celebration. Please do share at check it out at csldallas.org on the events page. We love you. Bye for now.
All right.